And now it's time for a Star Trek story.
You know, Aaron, we live in times of much turmoil. I don't know if anyone's noticed.
If you looked out the window the last little while.
We are definitely living in times of conflict. Are enemies unavoidable?
I mean, potentially, yeah, I think it's possible. There's species that live on little islands that have no natural predators whatsoever. You know what I mean? That's what kind of came to mind for me. I can't remember the name of the furry little critter. Starts with a Q.
Just no natural enemy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something?
Maybe it has smaller enemies like diseases, parasites. I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, of course, maybe a better question is, are enemies inevitable?
Inevitable.
You know, will there always be enemies? Must there always be enemies? I don't know.
We are a people that thrives on conflict and competition.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, let's see if we can find any good answers to this question on tonight's episode of Star Trek Stories. This is episode 26, appropriately titled The Enemy. I, of course, am your accomplished host, Jaron Hatch, and I'm joined here by my out-of-this-world co-host, Aaron Cole. Hello, Aaron.
Out of this world. Apt.
Yeah.
Quite.
We are continuing on with our look at the TNG Renaissance. Last time we watched Q Who. That was the second episode in our little season twofer, where our friends Q and Jake Barnes dropped in for a little visit, as did the Borg. They did do a bit of party crashing as well. And now today, this is going to be the first episode of a new little twofer. This is going to be the first episode in our Romulan twofer. You know, the Romulans aren't quite the big bad of TNG like the Borg are, but they're definitely the most frequently recurring enemies in the show.
Anytime you need a little spice, conflict,
The Romulans.
let's bring in the Romulans.
Yeah. Definitely Star Trek's most long-lasting foe. Like they are like right at the beginning, and they are basically just, to this day, still the bad guys. In the last kind of twofer, we kind of set up how, as TNG is kind of recontextualizing itself, it really starts to kind of integrate these kind of character-based morality tales they really start to hone in on, as well as finally like raising the stakes for the show. And I feel like the Romulans, anytime the Romulans show up, they're a good little sample of kind of these two things that TNG does well.
Yeah, they do ask some good questions with the Romulans, don't they?
Yeah. They always use the Romulans to kind of explore something.
In the episodes we've chosen, that you've chosen specifically.
Yeah. But before we get to the episode in question, we have a returning guest host. Back on Star Trek Stories is our very good friend, the very lovely Sean Leonard. Hello, Sean.
Hey everybody, appreciate you having me back.
Yeah.
What up, man?
For those of you who are new to the podcast, last time Sean was here, we watched Star Trek The Motion Picture, one of our big special episodes, and that was more or less your first real exposure to Star Trek, at least in terms of like watching something from start to finish.
That was my first real introduction, I would say. It is the first anything Star Trek, even from the newer movies, that I have watched all the way through. And if it helps, when you were saying TNG, it probably took me about 5 minutes, and then hearing it a few more times to realize exactly what it meant. So if that exactly, it took me a second, and then it clicked in my head, and I was like, "Oh, all right, that makes more sense." So yeah, if that tells you about anything where I'm at right now, Star Trek wise, there you go.
Still pretty fresh.
Still very, very fresh.
Very fresh.
But yeah, I'm excited to get into this and see what it's like.
Hell yeah. For any new listeners who may not have heard that episode, I mean, you should go back and listen to it. But just to kind of recap your feelings, now having only the Star Trek the Motion Picture under your belt, what are your kind of just, I don't know, impressions of Star Trek at the moment?
I mean, it's definitely positive. It's definitely something that I'd like to start getting a little bit more into, and start watching, some of the, Next Generation stuff like that, that I just really haven't gotten around to. The motion picture was an interesting starting point for me, I guess, just based off of especially the ending, I should say, was just a lot to process for the first time. Other than that, it's not a bad movie. It really is. It's a decent movie. I'd watch it again. But yeah, overall thoughts are, it's this fun kind of thing that kind of just, it's like, what are the right words?
Kooky space time.
Exactly. And it's
so many glory shots.
Sean, and last time you came on, we talked a bit about how you're both like a cinephile and you're so much of a cinemaphile that you're actually like a burgeoning cinematographer, actually going into it. Mm-hmm. So I know you love films, and we definitely talked about like films and your love of films in the last episode. Now what we're watching now, though, is what most of Star Trek is the TV stuff. Star Trek, I think, is much more famous for being a TV show than, like, say, the film franchise. Does that love of films carry over to TV, or is it a little different? What's that like for you? Feel like for you?
Yeah, so it typically does carry over more into the your 45 minutes to your longer form, kind of more dramatic shows. Sitcoms, not as much. Those are just kind of fun, goofy way to just kind of relax, really. But stuff like Queen's Gambit, Breaking Bad, that kind of stuff, it definitely does translate into how do they shoot this? How do they light this? It's stuff like that I'd usually watch for in a film in those kind of longer form dramatic series. That transitions into the film and stuff, that goes back and forth. And it's just a fascinating thing. Sometimes I won't even be paying attention. Something will catch my eye and it's like, oh, how do they do that? Mm-hmm. And then it just goes down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out who lighted it, or who lighted it. who like the gaffer electrician was, who the DP was, just all this stuff, and then just going down rabbit holes and rabbit holes of all the stuff they've done. And yeah, so it does come over, but only to a point, I should say.
So you would say probably like your passion for film still reigns supreme, and find at least the film craft to be a little more interesting.
100%. And not to say that TV and stuff isn't. It's just film is just this whole other beast, really. Like there are definitely similarities, but it's just this whole process is a bit different. It's more not in depth, because TV shows are pretty in depth. But yeah, there's just something about it that is just more awe-inspiring to me. That just makes it that much more enjoyable, I should say.
Sean, if you want to chime in on a little question of the day, are enemies, definitely people with different perspectives, the most different perspectives, are enemies unavoidable, or are they inevitable?
My mind actually went to the same place with the quokkas, that's what they're called. Yeah, was like they don't know any, predators, so they will literally just come up to humans and just hang out like they're not threatened.
They know no violence.
Exactly. Yeah. It is tough. I almost want to say that they're not avoidable. But I'm definitely leaning more towards no, because I feel like no matter what someone does or anything like that, there's always going to be, I don't want to say adversity, because I mean, that's a given. But I feel like there's always going to be someone that is maybe out to get you, even if you don't know. It could be like
in direct opposition
yeah,
to you.
Exactly.
Or the thing you're a part of.
Exactly. And that could be as small as like something at work, or maybe you cut someone off in traffic. Like, I just feel like there's never going to be a way where, I mean, obviously, no, not everyone's going to like you, period. Mm-hmm. But again, it doesn't even have to be personal like that. Like, basically, I don't think there's any way to get through life without some sort of like enemy. Couldn't be a person, could be basically anything. But
for me, it might sound like cornball, but like I am my biggest enemy for sure.
Even yourself.
Yeah.
You can't get away from your biggest enemy, yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, even in the most idealized future, maybe there's no avoiding the concept altogether. There's always going to be something, whether it is some natural enemy or yourself. Interesting. Well, let's see if this episode has any insights. Maybe this episode can help us avoid enemies in the future. Who knows? Yes, so we are watching The Enemy. This premiered October 6th, 1989. This is the 7th episode produced for the show's 3rd season. And as we said before, this is the first episode in our little Romulan twofer. So one of the things we're going to be looking at is how the show uses the Romulans and adversaries in general to kind of explore ideas and concepts. They have shown up earlier in our list. It's always kind of been like fleeting appearances, so I think this will be a good chance to examine them more in depth. This is also the first episode on our list from the 3rd season of TNG, which is the season that is universally pointed to as when the show gets good. Thank God. You came in at the right time, Sean. Yeah, just a little behind the scenes for where we are at this point in the show. So the creator of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, he takes an even further step back with this season for health reasons. His health was continuing to deteriorate at this point. Maurice Hurley, who had been his handpicked successor to lead the show in season 2, he also left the show at this point due to all the infighting and behind-the-scenes chaos, which we've talked a little bit about, Aaron.
Just about. That's worth going into. That can be like our special features, is the Star Trek special features.
The Star Trek special features, yeah. Our little documentary on the history of Star Trek. But at this point in the show, producer Rick Berman was mostly running things. That is a name that is going to come up from here for a long time now. He was doing his best to follow Gene's vision for the show while also trying to give it the creative freedom it needed to thrive, because a lot of what was holding the show back was Roddenberry's
rewriting and saying no. And
no, this is how it needs to be. This is how Star Trek needs to be. And like famously said, there can't be any conflict between the main characters. And everyone's like, how the hell are we supposed to write a show then?
That's not a show, Gene. That's not a show.
So after Maurice Hurley's exit, Rick Berman, they brought on some new writing staff, and Berman makes brand new writer Michael Piller the head of the writer's room. Michael Piller is usually who is credited as being the biggest creative force behind making the show the classic it's going to become. Particular, he's the one that really hones in on, like, we're going to do these character-based morality tales. He really pushes for that. And a lot of other longtime Trek writers get their start in this season too, so it really is a big switch for the show. Michael Piller is a co-writer on this episode. So we'll get our first little taste of kind of his creative vision for the show, which should be fun. All right. Well, for those of you at home who are going to watch with us, Star Trek The Next Generation is streaming on Paramount Plus. You can find it by bringing up Season 3, episode 7, and we will be back after we watch The Enemy.
Lieutenant, sometimes the moral obligations of command are less than clear. I have to weigh the good of the many against the needs of the individual and try to balance them as realistically as possible. God knows I don't always succeed.
I have not had cause to complain, Captain.
Oh, Lieutenant, you wouldn't complain even if you had cause.
If you order me to agree to the transfusion, I will obey, of course.
I don't want to order you, but I ask you, I beg you to volunteer.
I cannot.
Lieutenant?
Sir.
That will be all. Regard to Dr. Crusher.
Go ahead.
Do not continue to enlist the cooperation of Lieutenant Worf.
I won't have to, Captain. The Romulan has died.
We just got done watching The Enemy. In case you did not watch it with us or haven't seen it, so essentially what happens in this episode is the crew of the Enterprise discovers a crashed Romulan ship on a Federation planet just outside the Romulan neutral zone. The planet itself has all kind of like these electromagnetic storms that are just janking everything up. So they can only ever go down there a few minutes at a time. They find a Romulan survivor and beam him up. But during the process, Geordi gets trapped on the planet, and he ends up finding another Romulan also trapped on the planet. So those two kind of come into conflict and then eventually have to work together in order to survive. Meanwhile, on the ship, the Romulan up there is dying, and the only one who can save him is Worf, who can, he's a compatible donor for like ribosomes he needs. And because of his beef with the Romulans murdering his parents as a little kid, he refuses to save the Romulan's life. And during all this, Picard is playing a game of brinksmanship with a Romulan ship that is threatening to cross the neutral zone and get its people back. All right, we'll start with initial thoughts. Sean, initial thoughts coming off of The Enemy, your first Star Trek TV episode.
Well, first off, I gotta say, I fucking love Patrick Stewart. God, I love Patrick Stewart. No, yeah. As for like the first, like any Star Trek TV episode I ever watched, it was really good actually. Like it was pretty well paced. It had some really good peaks. You know, always right before the commercial break, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, more than that, it's like it really kind of shows you like exactly what can happen if you can put your differences aside. And I know that's like the whole point of your like the enemy question and all that.
Yes, of course.
But as a whole, just like as an episode of TV in general, it was good. It was very watchable. I mean, nothing really to pick apart from it except maybe a couple convenient rocks. But I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, it definitely it makes me interested to go back and watch a few more and kind of get into it a little bit more. But yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so like if you're putting yourself, so this is not one of the all-time greats. This is also not some terrible episode. This is just like trying to like, as if you just picked up some random episode. So like if you're putting yourself in 1989, someone who's like, I know there's a Star Trek TV show, and then you just happen to like catch this right at the beginning, and you're like, all right, I'll watch it. Is this episode something that would pique your interest in continuing on with the show?
I think with the way it started, it would have held my attention, definitely. So I would say yes. Mainly because it starts with a little bit of man, my words today are just not coming out. But it starts with a little bit of that kind of what's going on. Like there's a little bit of conflict, obviously, with the Romulan kind of waking up and choking freaking Worf. But there's also like what is this planet? What is all of this stuff? It's flashy, obviously. But it gives you enough questions to kind of think about in your head where you're like, okay, I kind of want to see where this goes. And I think it answers it very well. Because I've always actually wondered why Geordi wears the visor and like how he went blind, and it was answered in this episode, which I will admit was kind of a letdown that he was just born like that. But
Just born like that.
What are you gonna do? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a decent starting point, I would say. Like, again, like you said, it's not the greatest, it's not a flop.
No.
But it's a solid episode, I would say, based off very limited knowledge. But
yeah, and like I was also going to ask, like, and because I tried not to, give you any kind of rundown. It's just like just let the show essentially explain itself. Does it? Star Trek has lots of very particular details, and I'm sure you picked up. It's like there are like details about this show. There, Federation, tricorders, Romulans, like very kind of particular stuff in it. But is it like I said, they try to make this episodic so you could essentially come in on any episode and appreciate it. Is it, for how particular Star Trek is, would you say, is it accessible?
Yes, and a lot of that comes from, especially, so when I had any questions like why Worf like hates Romulans, why are these whole things happening, it answered it like almost immediately, which is always nice, especially when you're bringing someone into a new genre, maybe not genre, but like a new whole world of something else that's been established for at least for over 2 seasons now. That's a lot of TV to have missed, a lot of story that you missed. And I think it starts in a place that's interesting to keep you attached, but then answers all the questions, the major questions that you have to kind of get all the context from or for the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm. So much of TV today is like a setup for the next episode or the next finale or whatever, you know.
Exactly.
Like they'll pose a question, a mystery box, and then you might not ever see an answer to that question again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, even going back to our earlier show that we were talking about, Breaking Bad, like imagine coming in the middle of season 3.
Oh no,
Impossible.
Like, or Game of Thrones or something. It's like you can't. You're gonna be so lost.
Oh, you're hopeless at that point.
It's kind of almost a minor miracle that something so as specific as Star Trek can get away with making almost every episode essentially like anyone can come in and more or less understand what's happening. That's not easy to do, and not have it just be like exposition scene after exposition scene. It's like every scene, like it's very economical. Like it was just about the next thing in this particular story. They were just really good about peppering in though what you needed to know in a way that doesn't feel contrived or like they're forcing in explanations.
No, exactly. It very seamlessly followed the 3X story structure too. It hit every single button on the nose while making it, like you said, accessible and like just these little bits of information on the side that just kind of added to or like flushed out the entire episode itself. Yeah, very easy to follow. I mean, really, I that's what I was a little worried about coming into this, was like, am I gonna know the background of all these people, yada yada yada. But yeah, I found it very easy to comprehend, and it like I said, it answered every single question that I had, really. So,
good job, Star Trek. And Patrick Stewart. Aaron, not as a Star Trek noob.
As a not Star Trek noob.
Anyway, initial thoughts coming on this one.
I was kind of surprised they let the Romulan die. That's a bit out of character for TNG, I say, so far. Right. Certainly different than something maybe Roddenberry would have put forward in the first 2 seasons, where conflicts are resolved peacefully and happily and through their words. But Worf stalls and the Romulan dies.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah, that is interesting. It does give it a kind of a messy, it's still a messy conclusion. I mean, it's still, the show is very optimistic, and clearly at the end of this, you're walking away with a very positive message about like you said, Sean, about like putting your differences aside. But I like that they don't shy away, that like, but for some people, for whatever reason, they might not have what it takes to or they find it really difficult to put those differences aside. I do like that it feels more realistic, that they would have something like that.
I like that. Yeah. The ideals had to be put aside at a moment where it was like, okay, choose it, kill me now, or we have a chance to get out of here, right? Mm-hmm. Survival became more important at the very most passionate, like heavy moment for the Romulan.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting with Worf. Initially, when it was kind of controversial in like behind the scenes that Worf was going to do that, and like Michael Dorn went to the writer, Michael Piller, was like, I don't think Worf would do this. Like, but Michael Piller was able to kind of get him to be like, here's why I think he would, and here's why I think for the show this makes sense. And then since then, Michael Dorn's like, yeah, I can't imagine that episode not having that whole aspect of, and it feels within character. It doesn't feel like something out of left field to create conflict.
No, yeah, it's like a natural progression, and the conflict that the show needed. I'm sure that was a big point.
Mm-hmm. It's been a second since I've watched this episode, and for me, as I was watching it, I mean, even though I haven't watched it in a second, I've seen all these episodes countless times. And for me, I'm like, this was very, I don't want to say like economical, but like everything felt very like purposeful and intent. There felt like there was no wasted space in this episode. Like it just felt like everything with like the writing and the directing. I thought there were some cool, interesting shots and choices. I mean, not that's gonna, it's still 1989 television, but you can see like the director, and this is actually David Carson, who would go on to direct the film Star Trek Generations. You can tell he's trying to make the show look as interesting as he can. This is actually, I think, a really good performance from Patrick Stewart. You said Patrick Stewart, it's like your first thing, Sean. It's like there are like classic episodes that like people will list as like, what are the great Patrick Stewart performances in Star Trek The Next Generation? And there's a few episodes people will list. I don't think anyone would list this one, but watching, I'm like, my God, he is, talk about like, he just elevates everything around him. Like anytime he's doing it, and a lot of the time he is just acting against, if you really think about it, there are long sequences where he's staring at a view screen, and from the actor's point of view, that's just lots of scenes of essentially him monologuing to the camera, even though he's like having a scene with the Romulan commander. I'm like, that's not easy to do. Like to be that, he would essentially be acting against nothing. He's just projecting out. I'm like, he makes it unbelievably believing, and you're just committed to every moment where he's doing his thing.
It's like, what does an off day with Patrick Stewart look like? Does that even exist?
Right.
Does he have bad acting days?
Exactly. But what's interesting for me is like when I see that, I always think it's a little bit more impressive because, I mean, from the way I think about it, is you got the camera, you got your operator, you got your DP, you got your director, you got several people just on the other side of the camera that he's staring past, and they're most likely doing other things, setting up for other shots, setting up lights, something else, and they're moving around, and he's just laser focused.
Yeah.
So it's always a little extra thing that I think about when I see actors, especially like that, monologuing just looking away from the camera, which is definitely an extra little tick in my book. But
that's probably some of the hardest acting out there, is that kind of stuff. Just off camera acting, because what you're supposed to be reacting in the scene, like chances are it's not actually there in front of you. It's a bunch of people, cameras and half a dozen things that could take you out of the moment in the scene. And to be that just committed, take after take, that's a lot of hard work.
And especially the way it was shot, because that was shot as a decent one or two. It was a lengthy take where he comes all the way down, comes around, and then still delivers it. And that's
pacing across
impressive.
The bridge, no cuts.
Exactly.
Getting all the blocking right, nailing your mark.
Very, very impressive shot right there.
Intention.
Switching gears a little bit, I suppose we should talk about, since this is an episode in our little Romulan twofer, let's talk about the Romulans a little bit. And I mean, we'll have a couple of different perspectives. What's your take on like the Romulans, especially since we've been talking about enemies? How do the Romulans come across? And I'm assuming I'm assuming this is your first exposure to Romulans or anything like that.
I knew what they were called. I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't know really anything else about them. So, I'm not more interested, but I would be interested to find out more why everyone's like just at war with humans or humanoids or whatever they should be called. In this episode, seeing 3 of them is interesting because you got the commander and then the 2 that are on the planet. Is kind of an interesting little thing instead of seeing any shots from their ship maybe and like their crew, anything like that. It was kind of fun to watch that kind of play out because Geordi's the only one that what was his name again?
Bakra. Centurion Bakra.
Yes. He's the only one that really interacts with him until the very end, and then he goes home. Yeah. And then the other one obviously dies. And then the other one's the commander that only really interacts with Picard. Yeah. So that was really kind of an interesting way to put in a supposedly large enemy, a threatening enemy to the Federation into an episode. It was very almost minimalist, but still got its point across very well.
That's always the thing with Romulans is like the big setup is always we know so little about them. They know so little about us, right? So you see very few Romulans until the newer shows, modern Star Trek.
Yeah, it also is thematically appropriate because it's clearly this episode is getting into perceptions of, in quotes, the enemy. And how the Romulans all the Romulans are portrayed from the point of view of the humans and Starfleet officers looking at them. So it's really about how, you're not getting a lot of detail about the Romulans. It's really about how Geordi sees this Romulan, how Worf sees the Romulan he's got to save, how Picard sees the Romulan, he's staring across the neutral zone. And that really gets, I think, a lot of the thematic ideas across is, again, being economical with how they're showing the Romulans. And especially if you don't know anything about them, it would have some kind of like, who are these guys? You would have no idea, I would imagine, what are they going to do in any of this. Very mysterious.
It was fun to kind of see the different aspects of the 3 Romulans, too, because you had the one that died. Obviously, Worf brings in, he grabs him and brings him close and says that he'd rather die than, be saved by Worf. So very stubborn-headed, stuff like that. Then you get the one that is stuck on the planet with Geordi. He's wants to live. Ultimately, like he wants to live. He says at the beginning, he's like, but they end up working together, find a way off. And then the other one's stoic but bullheaded. But in the end sees. It's just an interesting little way to view them as well, just like to add on to that little enemies thing, like with just the 3, is to see the different ways they portrayed them too. It's not all just like, especially with the 2, like, I guess, soldiers or
the Centurions.
But not being shaped and molded into the same carbon copies of each other.
Yeah, they're not a monolith. They're not orcs.
They're not all the exact same. They all have, different personalities, different. They're different humanoids. So that's an interesting little one.
Yet they all seem like, they give you get a sense of what the Romulans are, but you can see like a shared DNA between them, but they're all very different individuals. As for there's essentially 2 plots going on, like an A and B plot. We have the A plot being Geordi and Bakra on the planet, and then the B story with Worf and the Romulan, or just the Romulan on the ship stuff. What's our feelings on like how these 2 plots? Star Trek loves to do these kind of A plot, B plot things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. What's our feeling on like, the 2 plots at play in this episode?
They were cohesive. I think it's like Sean said, everything fit together really well. It had good pacing throughout the whole thing. Like, there was an A plot and a B plot, but it was all part of the same structure, right? The same scaffolding. Sometimes in Star Trek, they really branch off.
And that's why it works, is because it's all tied together. It's not even, I mean, you could argue that there's an A, B, and small C plot.
Like
even.
Picard.
Yeah, exactly. It's you can make the argument for that, but even if you do that, all three even tie together. Because ultimately, the Romulans are trying to get their guys back, like, flatly. And then same with the Enterprise. The Enterprise are trying to get Geordi back without, starting this whole, war or anything. And it's not easy to do, but this episode did it very well.
Yeah,
I would say. I think they hit it right on the head, and if they tried to add even 30 seconds more, it could have derailed most of it, I would say.
What's the more compelling of the plots? Is it the Geordi and Bakra stuff on the planet, or the stuff with the Romulan and Worf on the Enterprise?
I'm inclined to give it to Geordi and Bakra.
Geordi and Bakra?
Yeah. That upper body strength. Geordi's just climbing those walls.
That is very, especially with those shaky spikes, trying not to just let it fall out. Like,
he doesn't even have magnets like Ethan Hunt.
They play off each other really well too. Again, I think all the performances in this are pretty solid. Like,
yeah,
some of the the Bakra, because his nervous system was supposed to be freaking out, and there were a couple scenes I was watching him, and like I was getting a little stressed out. I'm like, I can imagine what that, because he's just kind of like,
yeah, he's having a whole
shaking and
losing muscle control.
I can imagine what that would feel like, like that would be awful. And he portrayed that really well. I thought
he did do very well. What honestly bugged me a little bit was, even before he started doing all the shaking, it's just his lips were all over the place. I don't know why that bugged me, but he was a very teethy.
His
speaker.
opening face when he first hits Geordi, and he's like,
yeah, exactly.
That
But
put me off a little bit.
it doesn't ruin his performance in the slightest. Like, he did a great job.
Yeah,
fantastic job.
I wonder if any of these like Star Trek alien actors, I wonder how much conscious thought goes into like, I can't just play him like a normal human though. I kind of have to do something to make him. I'm an alien. I'm not a human. So I wonder if any of that is like interesting acting choices or whatever is.
so hard to conceptualize what that would even look like.
It is.
Right.
I mean,
whether conscious or subconscious.
that's true. That it really is an interesting thought, because my immediate thought is that there's a lot of thought and effort put into it, but at the same time, like you just said, like, how would you conceptualize what that is?
Right.
But
especially on TV, where you don't, like weekly TV, you don't have time
no, exactly.
to create this huge backstory for your one episode character.
No, you got like a day, and then you're on set shooting. Which, by the way, the set work in this was fantastic.
I agree.
For being shot in, I'm assuming, LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
LA.
like in a soundstage with all the water and the Geordi climbing all the mountains and stuff. Very well done, especially in the 80s.
Yeah,
Like,
89.
Very well done.
Really, really good lighting. I felt like this scene we're watching right now, and because we have the episode playing in the background, I've paid a little more attention to how they light Worf in some of these shots, especially when they're talking about, are you going to save this man? Here's why you should. And Worf's like, well, here's why I won't. And both, like, they light Picard and Riker. There's like two scenes where like. There's like three scenes where characters are trying to convince him to do the right thing. There's the scene with Dr. Crusher, and there's the scene with Riker, and there's finally the scene with Picard. The three of those characters are all pretty well lit and glowing. Especially in the scene with like Riker, Worf is like almost always like he's got shadow on one side of his face, and he's well lit on the other side. There's a word for that. I know, you know what it is, Sean. When you do that kind of lighting, but.
Like Rembrandt lighting?
Rembrandt lighting, yes. And it's a really small, and it's a classic, I don't want to say one of the oldest tricks in the book, but like it's so effective at communicating the conflict we're supposed to be feeling with Worf. And it's usually his shadow side that's getting the dominant lighting. So we're seeing that, like, this is a character, while there's a good part of him, he's doing the wrong thing.
There you go.
Like
Right
that
there.
shot right there.
Yep, turns back to look at Picard and immediately half his face. You can't get full, I mean, you probably could, but you could do Rembrandt fully with Worf, but it's his forehead that just messes it up. So it's that still very dramatic cut halfway down his face that really kind of shows that kind of, you know, the morality versus, like, you know, like what's morally right, as opposed to, hey, this race killed my parents. Which is really fun to look at, especially when he's in talking to number one. He's staring out into the freaking void that is space, just trying to convince to save someone's life. Like, very well lit.
What do we think in terms of like the episode's thematic messaging? Any thoughts on, you know, what it's trying to get across with enemies? Is it as simple as putting our differences aside? I mean, what do you think they're trying to do here? With what are they trying to get at in this story?
There's brick by brick, maybe, like little acts of that, like just solving problems together as conflicting powers. Doing that over and over again is eventually what leads to a lasting peace.
And I think it's definitely more, even with that, it's like, yeah, you may be on the verge of like full scale war with, you know, the Romulan, like in this instance, but even like the smallest of things can bring even enemies together for even just a little bit. Like there is no instance where you have to hate someone 24/7. There's always room to at least work with that other entity, person, whatever you may have, and still be able to have progress done.
Geordi, LeVar Burton had that one really good line that stuck with me, where he was like, they're him and the Romulan are talking about, you know, dying rather than being captured, or, you know, dying for what you believe in or whatever. And Geordi is like, yeah, there are times when it is important to, or it is, you know, worthwhile to die for something you believe in. Like, there are times like that. Do you think this is one of those times? And you can see that's when the Romulan lowers the disruptor. And I think that for me, it's a lot of this. This episode, I think, does a good job about kind of making you kind of examine, making all the characters in this episode, which is how the best stories should go. Like, it shouldn't be just the audience discovering this. The characters should be discovering this. But so much of this idea of the enemy is perceptions, not entirely. You know, if someone's coming to try to kill you, it's like, well, maybe if I just try to look at him differently.
Hailing frequencies are...
But there was a lot of questioning. I mean, like, you know, and making you have to kind of rethink some of this. And like we said before we started watching, and like you brought this up, Aaron, this I can be my own worst enemy. And like Worf, and kind of ends up
him in conflict with himself and his past, and the current situation. Totally his own enemy, standing in his own way,
right,
from being better, right,
and risking intergalactic war because of it.
Mm-hmm. So the stakes are beyond him at that point. He's still choosing to not do it.
Yeah. And it's that action that escalates the conflict. And that's not taken by the Romulan, or even though the Romulan's like, I'm not going to be saved by you. So clearly some sharing of the blame. But
do you think they would have just like let him not consent to the operation like that? The Romulan? Like they had an asset in their hands that was preventing a a potential war, right? Do you think they would have just let the Romulan die? I don't think they would have.
I don't know. Is there a good Samaritan law in Star Trek?
I mean, especially Next Generation, this idea of like personal autonomy, they take very seriously, because it is interesting to note. It makes the scene where Picard essentially is begging Worf, please change your mind, and Worf's like, no, but I will do it if you order me to. And then Picard has that moment, just, Lieutenant, and you think he's going to order him to do it, and he just says, that'll be all. Like Picard could have in that moment have ordered him to do it to avert war, and the Romulan was going to die anyway. We learned a few seconds later, but he does not order him to do it. No one forces Worf to do it. That's also very interesting.
That's what I was waiting for, was the order. But yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a curveball, or a little bit of a change up to just let him be like, okay, like, you made up your mind, I'm not going to force you to do it. It was a little bit of a change up.
Yeah, kind of an interesting ethical question. It's like, is that the ethical thing to do? In principle, it's the right thing to do, to not have to force anyone to do anything against their will like that.
Picard even says the line in so many words: the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the individual.
I was waiting for a Lord of the Rings thing there. I was so close to just like finishing it, but like finishing the saying. But
so do all who love to see such times.
Oh, we could.
Any final thoughts on the enemy?
I mean, I was a little interested in that the Romulan ship did fly into Federation airspace before they knew that the Romulan died.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, no, not really.
We're responding to our man. Are you?
Are you though? You just kind of playing up to us at this point. Like, you definitely breached our space. I keep wanting to say airspace, but
Space.
Our space.
Yeah, space.
Did we ever get that answer? No, we didn't. What are you guys actually doing here on this planet right now? Nothing. Bye.
Yeah.
Give us our guys back. Bye.
Yeah. Or we had a second guy down there. Oh, I had no idea.
Oops.
No idea.
Oh, I did not get that information. Miscommunication, I think he said.
What kind of operation are you guys running over there?
You're either super sneaky or super inept.
I'm going with sneaky.
Well, thanks for coming on, Sean. We'll definitely have to bring you on for something else. I know at some point I want to get you on for one of our nerd movies, non-Star Trek stuff, because I know you have lots of thoughts and feelings on just movies in general.
I do indeed. I very much do indeed, but appreciate you for having me back on. Looking forward to next time.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Next week, we'll be watching the second episode in our Romulan twofer. We're going to be watching The Defector. And this one only aired a few weeks after this one, and it's kind of like a spiritual follow-up to this episode. Not exactly, different plot, but Commander Tomahawk shows back up again. There's, border crisis on the neutral zone again. So yeah, that'll be fun to get to see. We will also have a new friend on to talk about that one. And very excited to be bringing them on. Thank you so much, everyone. Aaron, I love you so much.
Love you, man. Hey, speaking of Star Trek, I love you.
That's how we said that. What's your love language? Star Trek. And words of affirmation. Sean, I love you too.
Love y'all.
Oh, love you.
Thanks all. Love you all except for the one of you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to share us your own Star Trek story, you can email us at storiedstartrek@gmail.com, or you can visit our Discord server. You can find us by clicking on the link in the show description.